I'ma keep it a bean. Stick to the script, every scene. This from last year, but they clean. Say to say, I'ma take something else, but it's winning team. Charlie Sheen, fam gang, the regime. I'm from Piney Green.
This been overdue forever. Asked me when it was dropping, said never. Should've made you cut the feather, but I designed it Freemason Margiela.
What's good, Shellitronnn here, the most woke, no joke, and I'm back again with a brand new video. And today we're going to be talking about a player the team actually brought in for a private workout, a guy who has very high potential to have a pretty good NFL career, but someone who brings up very big questions for me. I have a lot of questions about this guy. I think he can be a good player, but there are some red flags about him that really need to be addressed before the Panthers actually consider picking him up. And I'm sure some of these questions were addressed during the private meeting. I'm talking about a guy named Christian Miller out of Alabama. He's 6'4", 244 pounds. He's an outside linebacker, edge rusher kind of guy. He's not really a coverage guy. He is almost basically a pass rush specialist kind of guy. And in some ways, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Marquise Haynes, although he may have a little bit of a higher ceiling depending on the scheme that's run here. But before I go ahead and peep a bunch of praise on the man, I gotta ask a few questions that came to my mind when I saw the Panthers brought him in for a private meeting. Okay, so Christian Miller was a guy who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, a top 5 linebacker coming out of high school, coming out of South Carolina, and he went where a lot of 5-star recruits or a lot of guys who are top 5 in the position go. He went and he signed and committed to Bama. And when he went to Bama, he ended up basically sitting for 3 years. He redshirted his freshman year, and in his sophomore and junior years, he didn't start more than I think like 2 or 3 games in that time period. And that's kind of a big issue with these big prospect kind of guys. It's one thing to be a big fish in a small pond, but it's a whole different animal when you're a big fish in the ocean because there's a lot of other big fish around you. You can be a top 5 prospect at your position. You can be a 5-star recruit, get to Bama, and then you realize, wait a second. That guy is here. That guy's here. This guy's here. There's a lot of other guys who play your position, who play your role, who might just be better than you. And you have to weigh the pros and cons of thinking, okay, I can go to Bama, which is a high profile, and then people just think automatically, wait, if Nick Saban wanted that guy, that means there's obviously something there. He has something about him that greatness is gravitated to, greatness is magnetized to. Even if you don't have the best stats in the world, Nick Saban wanted that guy to go to Bama. So there has to be something there. But then you have to weigh that against all the other guys that Nick Saban sees greatness in. And you may have to end up humbling yourself and thinking, okay, yeah, I was a good player in high school, and I might be a good player now, but I'm surrounded by a lot of other good players right here. And a dude who was a top 5 prospect ended up sitting down, not starting for 3 straight years. He probably could have gone to a different school and balled out his freshman and sophomore year and would have gotten maybe a little bit more love. And then when you look at his stats here, look at all the stats here. So freshman year, he only played in 1 game, then redshirted. His sophomore year in 2016, he had 16 tackles. He had, 2.5 for a loss, 2 sacks, that's it. 2017, the very first game of the year, he tears his bicep and is out for 10 games, only plays 4 games, and he gets 6 total tackles, 2 for a loss, 1 sack, basically no stats, really. And in 2018, he has his only real productive year in his whole college career, 34 tackles, 11 for a loss, 8 sacks, 1 pass defended, and a fumble recovered. Those numbers look pretty good, but when you think about a player you're going to be drafting, having only 1 actual year of production, and his junior year was basically, it wasn't ended, but it started off with a really bad note with him missing more than half the season with an injury. And then actually to end this season, he couldn't play the title game because he hurt his hamstring, I believe it was. So 2 pretty major injuries, back-to-back years, and you don't really have that much film on him because he was surrounded by other good players. And that's the next point about going to Bama. Your numbers can be good, but when you think about it, a lot of guys who go to Bama, especially on defense, tend to benefit from being around other great players. So for the most part, when you're thinking about matchups and whatnot, there's a guy on the team that you want to key in on and say, okay, if the team's going to beat us, it's not going to be with this guy, so we're going to double team him. We're going to see if we can, get him bracketed. We can see what we can do to scheme around making sure that he doesn't get his. You can't really do that against Bama all that much. There are so many guys that are so good in that defense that, honestly, you're stuck on one-on-ones. For the most part, you're stuck with one-on-ones, and sometimes guys will benefit from other guys' greatness because, look, you got to pick up someone. And if you happen to not be the focus of the opposition for that play, you can really cause some big havoc because obviously you're talented, but they have to focus on other things as well. So in some ways, it was a good thing to see him get a really good productive year out of Bama in his last season there. but in other ways it makes me question just how much did he really benefit from, playing around other great players that teams, everyone got theirs. At Bama, you're going to get yours. So it's a little bit hard to really gauge exactly what his real skill set is. Now, getting to his body, like I said, he's 6'4", 244 pounds. That is light. He has long arms, he has long legs, and he uses them both. His burst isn't really all that great off the ball, but the biggest thing that you see about him is his frame needs to get bigger. That's just what it is. His frame has to get bigger. If you go to his combine scouting report and you go to his weaknesses, they're all the same thing. High cut with thin legs, has added weight but needs to put on more bulk and strength, lacks sand to anchor and can get mishandled by tackles, needs to ramp up his physicality to be able to play on early downs, unable to convert his speed into power as a rusher, can't power through edges as a rusher and gets forced wide, doesn't have base strength or balance against redirect blocks. Those are all focusing on one thing and one thing only. Now, on one hand, that looks horrible. It's like, bro, this is a big problem. And just how much weight can you really put on a guy in one offseason, like in training camp, in the preseason, that kind of stuff? And will that affect the way he plays his game? Because if a guy played at 244 and that's the guy you scouted, if he hits 266 or 270, how different will his gameplay be? And will he still have those same skills at the same level that you scouted and drafted him for at 25 pounds heavier? You never know. But on the other hand, thinking to yourself, if that's his only problem, we can work around that. It's not like a teachable kind of thing. You don't have to worry about his IQ or his reactions or maybe his technique and that kind of stuff. The dude just has to get bigger. We can try to work around that, and while he's getting bigger and bigger, make sure that we maintain and keep his technique right, so that while he's getting used to his size, getting used to maybe lose a little bit of speed here, we can still have him playing at the right level for his weight and adapt his game as he does fill out his body and whatnot. But for me as a whole, there's just so many questions this guy does bring up. He's very versatile. He can cover backs out the backfield. Like I said, he's a good pass rusher. He has a good mix of moves, fast hands. He works really well against the run and the pass. He can set an edge really well. But the biggest thing is his strength. And you cannot forget those red flags, those injuries. Torn biceps in 2017 and missed 10 games, and a 2018 hamstring injury. Those are things you have to look at. Two different parts of the body, and two pretty important parts of the body for an edge rusher, whether he's standing up or with his hand in the dirt. But that's another thing right there. He's a stand-up linebacker kind of guy, and we already have Bruce Irvin. And if he has a 3rd or 4th round grade, how do the Panthers draft in order to get Christian Miller? I think the only way to get Christian Miller would be to go defensive end 1st round, safety 2nd round, O-lineman 3rd, and then if you're going to go with him, you may have to go with him at the 100th pick, or maybe hope he falls to the 4th. I'd be more willing to say that, look, if Christian Miller falls to the 4th, then that's cool. I'd probably use our number 100 pick, maybe on Will Grier, maybe on something else, maybe, I don't know. I think Will Grier is probably a really good pick if he's there, but maybe the team will be willing to trade back into the 3rd using their 4th and their 6th. I'm not really sure how I feel about that because there are some really good players who are going to be available day 3 in the draft. There will be guys who can have big impact on our team this season. And that's kind of a weird thing to say, round 5 and 6 guys having a big impact. I really do believe there are a couple specific guys. I think I've already mentioned them in videos by now. Mark Fields and Anthony Ratliff-Williams are 2 guys round 5 and 6. I'm not really all that sure if I would trade those away for another linebacker. And Christian Miller is a good player who has the potential to be maybe worth that draft capital. But I'm thinking to myself right here, those injuries are a big one for me. Those injuries are, it's almost a deal breaker, but you're going to get some good production out of him. But for right now, he seems more like a situational kind of guy you throw in here and there. And I think we have enough of those situational kind of guys. And we have enough issues. We have enough holes in our defense right now. And maybe even our offense to the point where if we're going to use a 3rd or 4th round pick on a guy, I'd be more willing to go with like a guy like Ben Powers. That's where I'd probably lean more toward than Christian Miller. But if the team did pick up Christian Miller, I know there'd be a plan in place. I know they'd have to have some kind of scheme already ready for him. It'd be in rotation and that kind of thing. Maybe work him in deeper into the season. But what are your thoughts? Do you like Christian Miller? Do you not like Christian Miller? Have you seen his game? Are you kind of worried about picking up a guy who's only ever had 1 real season of production in his college career and had 2 kind of big injuries in his college career as well? What are your thoughts on all that? Let me know all that in the comments below. And one last thing before I go. If you haven't already, please consider going down to that pinned comment below and clicking on that link. It takes all of 10 seconds to sign the petition to get the Panthers to partner with this channel. We hit 400 signatures. 400 signatures. You guys have gone crazy, man. The support's been wild. I think it's only been, what, 2 weeks so far? And it would mean a lot to me if you haven't gone ahead and hit that link already to go ahead and do that for me. It'd be a big thing. And as always, you already know to do with that like button.
Cheers to you, appreciate the chance. Been told y'all I been the man. Been told y'all I had the gift. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Real ones gonna recommend. Count this as another win.